The unconquerable Armada. The Draxian warships sliced through space like obsidian blades, their hull plating absorbing all light except for the pulsing crimson energy lines that traced their predatory contours. Grand Commander Vox Era stood on the command platform of the inevitable Dominion, his 4 eyes narrowed in satisfaction at the holographic display showing the 73rd consecutive Draxian victory. "Another pathetic defense," he remarked, his voice reverberating through the chamber. His crew of genetically optimized Draxian elites maintained their rigid posture, none daring to speak without permission. "The Centaurian ships barely lasted 15 minutes, reported Tactical Officer Nex. "Their shield technology was inferior to our projections. The colony is defenseless." Voxera clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Begin the harvesting procedure. Standard pattern. Their resources will serve the Empire, as all things eventually must." For 7 solar cycles, the Draxian Empire had expanded unchallenged, consuming system after system. Their biomechanical ships possessed weaponry that could crack planets, armor that could withstand supernova, and engines that bent spacetime to their will. The species they encountered either submitted to become vassals or were eliminated, and their resources harvested to feed the Empire's endless hunger. The Allied Galactic Council, once comprising representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations, now had dwindled to just 11. They met in desperate secrecy in the abandoned mining facilities deep within the asteroid belt of the Procyon system. "We've lost the Centauri outposts," announced diplomat Kelna of the Aldebaran Republic, her crystalline form dimming with distress. 3 billion souls. The Draxians didn't even bother with ultimatums this time. High Minister Zorul of the Rigelian Compact slammed his tentacle against the ancient stone table. "This is the end. Our combined fleets cannot match even a single Draxian battle group. Their technology is centuries beyond ours." "Perhaps not all of ours," said a quiet voice from the shadows. All eyes turned to the human representative. Commander Lai Wei Chen stood just under 2 meters tall, his Terran Defense Force uniform stark against the colorful and varied physiologies of the other council members. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel barely 50 years ago. "With all due respect, Commander," said Zorul, "your species only joined the Council 20 years ago. Your 3 colony worlds and modest fleet hardly qualify you to offer military guidance." Chen smiled. "Sometimes fresh eyes see what experienced ones overlook. We've been analyzing Draxian battle patterns since they first appeared on our long-range sensors 5 years ago." "And?" prompted Kelna. "And we've been building something." Chen activated a small projector that displayed a ship unlike anything the Council had seen before. Where Draxian vessels were organic and curved, this ship was angular and modular. Where Allied ships favored aesthetic embellishments and visible weaponry, this vessel was starkly utilitarian with no obvious armaments. "This is the TDF Phoenix," Chen explained. "Our first and only Nemesis-class battleship." "It looks primitive," observed Kelna. "Deliberately so," Chen replied. "The Phoenix carries technology the Draxians have never encountered because it wasn't developed along the standard galactic evolutionary path. We humans took a different route." 3 days later, the lone human ship approached the Vega colony, where the Draxian fleet was still processing the remains of the Centaurian Defense Force. Captain Alina Reyes sat in her command chair on the Phoenix bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the tactical display. Around her, a crew of 30, half the standard complement on comparable alien vessels, operated the ship's systems with practiced precision. "Draxian fleet detected, Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Asher on sensors. 5 capital ships, 12 destroyers, and numerous support vessels. "They've spotted us but haven't altered course. They probably think we're scavengers or refugees," Rice said. "Tactical status. Shield emulators are functioning," replied Lieutenant Harper. "They'll read us as having standard defensive capabilities. Capacity fields are charged and ready. Disruption swarm primed for deployment." Rice took a deep breath. The Phoenix represented the combined intellect of Earth's greatest minds, a technological gamble born of human ingenuity and desperation. Unlike other species who had followed evolutionary paths of energy weapon advancement and shield technology, humans had focused on something entirely different: manipulation of electromagnetic and gravitational fields, system disruption, and counterintuitive physics applications. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Channel open. Broadcasting on all standard frequencies," confirmed Communications Officer Patel. "Draxian vessels," Riel began, her voice calm and authoritative. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Terran Defense Force battleship Phoenix. You are engaged in acts of genocide against sovereign civilizations. Cease your operations immediately and withdraw from this system." There was a moment of silence before a harsh voice responded, its translator making the Draxian words sound like grinding metal. "Terran vessel, this is Grand Commander Vox Era of the Draxian Empire. Your species is unknown to us, but your insolence is noted. Surrender immediately or be destroyed like the insects that preceded you." Reyes glanced at her first officer, Commander Diego Santos, who nodded grimly. "I was hoping for a more diplomatic response," she said, signing off the channel. "But this makes our job simpler. Battle stations. Initiate Phase 1. The bridge dimmed as power was redirected to the Phoenix's primary systems. Outside, the Draxian fleet was arranging into an attack formation, their fearsome weapons charging with crimson energy. "They're targeting us, Captain," reported Harper. "Weapons locks from multiple vessels." "Deploy Disruption Swarm," ordered Riel. From concealed bays throughout the Phoenix's hull, thousands of microdrones no larger than a human fist launched into space, their propulsion systems accelerating them to near-relativistic speeds within seconds. They formed a three-dimensional grid around the Draxian fleet, each drone emitting a precise electromagnetic field. On the inevitable Dominion, Grand Commander Vox Era watched with contempt as the primitive human vessel deployed what appeared to be defensive countermeasures. "A pathetic display," he commented. "Target their propulsion systems first. I want that ship intact for study." "Yes, Grand Commander," responded Tactical Officer Nex. "Firing solutions ready, weapons charged at 30% disable." The bridge lights flickered and died. Emergency lighting failed to activate. Through the viewport, Vox Era watched in shock as every ship in his fleet simultaneously went dark. "What is happening?" he demanded, his mandibles clicking in agitation. No one answered because no one knew. The Phoenix had deployed technology the Draxians had never encountered. A massive electromagnetic disruptor network that selectively targeted specific electronic systems while leaving life support intact. Aboard the Phoenix, Riel watched the sensor readings with satisfaction. Phase 1 successful. The swarm has neutralized their weapons, shields, and propulsion. Life support remains operational as planned. "They're attempting to reboot their systems," reported Asher. "Estimated restoration time: 17 minutes. "That gives us plenty of time," said Riel. "Prepare capacity fields for Phase 2. The Phoenix maneuvered between the paralyzed Draxian vessels, positioning itself at the perfect focal point. The capacity fields, humanity's greatest technological achievement, began to power up, drawing energy not from the ship's reactors, but from the ambient radiation of space itself and the residual energy emissions of the Draxian fleet. "Channel open to the inevitable Dominion," reported Patel. "They're on emergency power." Grand Commander Vox Era's enraged face appeared on the viewscreen. "What have you done, human? This act of sabotage will be your species' death warrant." "This was merely a demonstration, Commander Vox Era," replied Riel calmly. "A small sample of Terran capabilities. Your weapons and propulsion systems will restore shortly, but before they do, I want you to witness Phase 2. She nodded to Santos, who activated the capacity fields. Focused energy began to emanate from the Phoenix, enveloping one of the smaller Draxian destroyers. The vessel shuddered as the field penetrated its hull, bypassing its dormant defenses. "Impossible," exclaimed Vox Era, as he watched one of his ships being manipulated by invisible forces. No technology can penetrate Draxian biometal. Your biometal was designed to resist energy weapons and physical impacts, Riel explained. Our capacity fields operate on different principles entirely. They don't attack your ships. They convince them to reconfigure themselves. Before the astonished eyes of the Draxian command crew, their destroyer's hull began to transform, its molecular structure responding to the precise quantum-level instructions carried by the Phoenix's capacity field. The fearsome weapons arrays folded inward, sealing themselves off. The ship's critical systems rearranged into a defanged configuration. "We could do this to your entire fleet," continued Riel. "We could permanently disable every vessel. But today, this is just a message. The Draxian Empire is no longer unchallenged. Withdraw from this system immediately and cease all aggression against Council worlds." For the first time in his long career, Grand Commander Vox Era faced a truly unknown situation. His mighty fleet, rendered impotent by a single ship from a species he'd never heard of. The Phoenix hadn't even fired a conventional weapon. "The Draxian Empire does not negotiate with inferior beings," he managed to say, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. "This isn't a negotiation," replied Riel. "It's a choice. Retreat now, or we demonstrate Phase 3 on your flagship." The Draxian commander's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, calculating his options. "You are one ship. Even with your unusual capabilities, you cannot stand against the full might of the Draxian Empire." "Who said we're just one ship?" Riel smiled. "The Phoenix is a prototype, the first of many. As we speak, 15 additional Terran vessels have entered this sector following reports of Draxian aggression. But more importantly, we've shared our technology with the Allied Council. The rules of this war have changed, Commander." It was a bluff. The Phoenix was indeed unique, and no reinforcements were coming, but Vox Era had no way to verify this claim. The possibility that multiple ships with these capabilities existed completely altered his strategic calculus. In that moment, the proud Draxian commander made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. "We will withdraw from this system to reassess the situation," he announced stiffly. As the Phoenix watched, the mighty Draxian fleet, their systems now restored, formed up and accelerated away from the Vega colony. For the first time in 7 cycles, the unconquerable Armada retreated. Captain Riel exhaled slowly, knowing this was only the beginning. The Draxians would analyze what happened, adapt, and return. But humanity had bought precious time. Time to share their technological approach with their allies. Time to build more ships. Time to prepare. "Send word to Earth and the Allied Council," she told Patel. "First engagement successful. The Phoenix has risen, turning the tide." The Grand Imperial Chamber on the Draxian homeworld of Vox Primus had never before witnessed such disarray. The High Command, 12 of the Empire's most decorated and feared military leaders, argued vociferously while Grand Overlord Zex Moros watched in cold silence from his elevated throne. "Impossible," shouted Fleet Admiral Kravnex, slamming his armored fist onto the obsidian table. "No single vessel could neutralize an entire battle group." "And yet," said Grand Commander Vox Era quietly, "that is precisely what happened." The chamber fell silent. Vox Era's reputation had been built on countless victories and unwavering confidence. To hear him admit defeat carried weight that could not be ignored. "Explain again," commanded Grand Overlord Zex Moros, his voice like grinding stone. "How this human ship accomplished this feat." Vox Era activated a holographic projection showing the Phoenix and its unusual attack methods. They deployed some form of electromagnetic disruptor network that selectively targeted our systems, he explained. But more concerning was the second phase, a field that somehow reprogrammed the molecular structure of our biometal hulls. "Our scientists have analyzed the sensor data," added Science Director Nex Tull. "The human technology operates on principles we've never explored. Where we've perfected direct energy manipulation and biomechanical integration, They've developed subtle field technologies that interact with matter at the quantum level. Grand Overlord Zex Moroz's eyes narrowed. And you believe their claim that 15 more such vessels have entered our territory? We cannot confirm nor deny, admitted Voxera. But the strategic risk is unacceptable. If those ships exist and can coordinate with Allied forces, then for the first time in 7 cycles, concluded Zex Moroz, the Empire faces a genuine threat. Meanwhile, light years away, Captain Alina Reyes stood before the Allied Galactic Council, now meeting aboard the neutral space station Harmony in the Ta-CD system. Her uniform was slightly rumpled after days of continuous duty, but her posture remained impeccable. The Phoenix's engagement was successful beyond our projections, she reported. The Draxian fleet withdrew from the Vega colony without firing a shot. The council chamber erupted in sounds of amazement, whistles, clicks, and rumbles from a dozen different species. One ship, exclaimed High Minister Zorul. One ship did what our combined fleets could not. Commander Chen stepped forward. But we must act quickly. The Phoenix bought us time, but the Draxians will adapt. They'll develop countermeasures against our current technologies. Which is why, added Reyes, we need to immediately begin integrating human field technology with your existing ships and defensive systems. The Phoenix carries fabrication units that can produce the necessary components. And what do you ask in return? Questioned Elder Callum of the Proxima Collective, his bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with suspicion. Partnership, replied Reyes simply. Earth is still vulnerable. We have 3 colony worlds and limited resources. We need the Council's production capabilities and diverse scientific expertise. Together, we can create technologies that neither of us could develop alone. For 3 intensive weeks, the Phoenix traveled between Allied worlds, installing field generators on defense platforms and retrofitting warships with disruption swarm launchers. Reyes barely slept, dividing her time between overseeing installations, training Allied crews, and strategizing with her officers. On the 23rd day, the inevitable happened. Multiple Draxian signatures detected, reported Lieutenant Commander Asher. Much larger force than Vega. They're converging on the Rigelian homeworld. Reyes studied the tactical display grimly. They're testing us, seeing if our technology was a one-off trick, or if we've proliferated it. She opened a channel to the small but growing Allied fleet. All vessels, this is Captain Reyes. Form up on the Phoenix. We've trained for this. Execute battle plan Prometheus. The Allied ships, a hodgepodge collection of vessels from various civilizations, now augmented with human technology, moved into position. They were outnumbered 5-1 by the massive Draxian armada approaching from multiple vectors. They've modified their ships, observed Santos, examining the sensor readings, energy-dampening fields around their hulls. They're trying to counter our disruption swarm. As expected, Reyes nodded. That's why we developed Phase 4. All vessels, deploy enhanced disruptors, and prepare capacity fields. The battle that followed would later be recorded as the miracle at Riel. The Allied ships deployed their disruption swarms, which were indeed less effective against the modified Draxian vessels, but effective enough to create openings for the next phase of the attack. The capacity fields, now synchronized across multiple ships, created cascading effects that the Draxians couldn't counter. Still, the Draxian forces fought with ferocious determination. Their biomechanical ships, even partially disabled, launched devastating counterattacks that crippled 3 Allied vessels and severely damaged several others. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Lieutenant Harper as the Phoenix shuddered under a direct hit. Capacity field generators at 60%. Reroute power from auxiliary systems, ordered Reyes. We need those fields operational. The battle raged for hours, a deadly dance of innovation versus overwhelming force. The Phoenix, serving as the coordinating hub for the Allied fleet, became the primary target for the Draxian flagship, the Eternal Dominion, twice the size of the inevitable Dominion and bristling with weapons. They're adapting to our field patterns, warned Santos as another Draxian destroyer broke through their defensive line. The swarms are becoming less effective with each deployment. Ray studied the tactical display, her mind racing. The Draxians were learning, evolving their countermeasures in real time. This was the true strength of their species, the ability to assimilate and overcome any technological advantage through their collective intelligence. But human ingenuity had one more card to play. All Allied vessels, execute Protocol Omega, Rice commanded. Phoenix will engage the Eternal Dominion directly. Captain, questioned Santos. Protocol Omega hasn't been field tested. No time like the present, Commander, replied Rice with a grim smile. Besides, the theoretical models were promising. The Phoenix broke formation, accelerating directly toward the massive Draxian flagship. The Eternal Dominion's weapons arrays locked onto the human vessel, unleashing a barrage of destructive energy that the Phoenix's conventional shields could barely withstand. Capacity fields at maximum, shouted Harper as warning klaxons blared throughout the ship. Reverse polarity and initiate quantum inversion, ordered Reyes calmly. The Phoenix's capacity fields, instead of projecting outward, suddenly inverted, creating a quantum bubble that absorbed the Draxian energy weapons and, through a process that defied conventional physics, reflected their essential patterns back at the Eternal Dominion. Aboard the Draxian flagship, Grand Marshal Toxvira watched in disbelief as his own weapons fires seemed to bend in space and strike his vessel. Impossible, he roared. No technology can redirect phased quantum energy. But the impossible was happening. The Phoenix had employed a fundamental principle that the Draxians, for all their technological advancement, had never considered. That energy and matter were not just interchangeable, but could be inverted at the quantum level through precisely calibrated fields. The Eternal Dominion's weapons systems began to overload as they essentially attacked themselves. Cascading failures spread throughout the massive vessel as the Phoenix maintained its inverted capacity field. Their main power core is destabilizing, reported Asher. They're attempting emergency protocols, but the feedback loop is accelerating. All Allied ships maintain distance from the Draxian flagship, Rise ordered over the fleet channel. We're witnessing the limitations of their approach. They built their empire on overwhelming force, but when that force is turned against itself, the Eternal Dominion's sleek hull began to fracture, lines of blinding energy erupting from within, as its power systems catastrophically failed. Grand Marshal Toxvira, in his final act, ordered the evacuation of his command crew while he remained on the bridge, a captain going down with his ship in accordance with ancient Draxian tradition. The explosion ripped through space, temporarily blinding sensors. When the disruption cleared, the Draxian flagship was gone, and the remaining Imperial vessels were withdrawing in disarray. They're retreating, announced Santos, disbelief evident in his voice. All Draxian forces are withdrawing from the system. A cheer erupted on the Phoenix's bridge, quickly muted as Reyes raised her hand. This isn't over, she cautioned. We've won a battle, not the war. The Draxians will return, with new adaptations and strategies. But so will we, replied Santos. The Allied scientists are already working on improvements to our field technology based on battle data. Reyes nodded. And that's the true difference between us and the Draxians. They evolved to perfect a singular approach to domination. We evolved to constantly reinvent ourselves. 3 months later, representatives from the Draxian Empire arrived at Harmony Station under a flag of truce. For the first time in their history, they requested diplomatic negotiations rather than demanding surrender. The terms they offered were far from perfect, but they marked a fundamental shift in the galactic order. Captain Reyes, now promoted to Admiral and serving as Earth's representative to the Allied Council, addressed her fellow delegates after the Draxian envoys departed. Today marks a new chapter for our civilizations, she said, not because we defeated the Draxians, but because we demonstrated that technological supremacy alone doesn't ensure victory. It was our diversity, our different approaches, perspectives, and technologies that ultimately prevailed. And humanity's unique contribution, added Elder Callum, his bioluminescent tendrils glowing with respect, was not just your field technology, but your capacity to think differently when faced with overwhelming odds. Reyes smiled. That's the story of our species. Again and again throughout our history, humans have faced extinction-level challenges, plagues, climate disasters, war. Each time, we survived not because we were stronger or more advanced, but because we adapted. We found new ways to solve old problems. As the council session concluded, Reyes walked to the observation deck and gazed out at the stars. The Phoenix floated in the distance, still bearing the scars of battle. Technicians swarmed around it, integrating new improvements developed by the combined scientific teams of the allied worlds. The galaxy was still dangerous. The Draxians were wounded but not defeated. Other threats lurked in the vast darkness between stars. But for the first time in recent memory, the future held promise rather than dread. No one could challenge them, she murmured, until humanity showed that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the largest or most destructive. Sometimes it's simply a new way of thinking. In the distance, a new class of ships was taking form in the Allied shipyards, vessels that combined the best aspects of a dozen different technologies. They were neither human nor alien, but something entirely new, something that might ensure peace among the stars for generations to come. The Phoenix had risen, and with it, a new dawn for the galaxy.